and welcome to Feels Like Magic, the podcast where you will get the grounded self-development wisdom you might need to feel amazing about the person you authentically are. I'm Jo, a transformational coach, speaker, and author, and for decades I was so stuck in self-criticism that I never thought I would feel good about being me. Now I inhabit a new reality, one where I care way less about what other people think. I'm willing to show up as the person that I am, and I deepen into self-love and acceptance every single day. Honestly, it feels like magic. Each week, I'll share scientifically proven tools, things I've learned from the world's best coaches, and personal stories I know you'll relate to. Ready? Let's dive in. Okay, today we are going to talk about something incredibly important on my own journey and that I know affects so many women in my spaces and in just life, like my friends, the women I know. So not even people who are just coaching with me, but is this conversation that I have all the time with myself and that comes up for so many of us. And that is, how do we make decisions from our woman self, not our wounded little girl self? And this, my love, is so huge. And so if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what my wounded little girl self is, like, obviously I'm a woman, I'm this age and I've done this many things and I have children. I'm not acting from a wounded little girl space. I really want you to stay open. I really want you to stay open because this is not about age. This is not about what you've done in your life and what you've achieved. This is about a wound driving your behavior. So really, really stay open to this idea because it is very, very real. There is a whole podcast episode on healing your inner child. So if you want to do a foundational dive in terms of inner child, you can go there. But for today, I'm really going to talk about the making decisions piece and how our wounding can get in the way of what it is that we're here for, what it is that we're here to build, what it is that we're here to do. And this can be so confronting, and it can be like the bitterest pill to swallow. And in fact, I was on a session with somebody a couple of days ago who was operating from a belief that her little girl self had from the age of 4 that was blocking her from the deep connection she wanted. So this is how powerful this stuff is. It is really, really so incredibly powerful. And when we can get really clear on why we're doing what we're doing, it is so supportive for our evolution. It's also really, really important for our experience of life and like how much magic we can access in the present moment. Because one thing that's going to happen when you are responding to a wounded inner child inside is that your nervous system is going to respond. And that's why there's the saying, if it's hysterical, it's historical. If we have a big reaction to something, we don't just have that big reaction in our minds, we also have that big reaction in our bodies. And we really need to learn to work with these parts of ourselves if we want to have like the stability, the calm, the control, that builds this kind of internal safety. And one of the most beautiful things that I've experienced is having safety in myself, not outsourcing my safety to a man or to a house or to my bank balance, but really being like, my safety is in my body, my heart, my soul, because that is actually what is true. That is actually what is true. And then I can get so much more regulated and my experience of life is so much richer. And that's what I want for all women and men, right? That we really experience the richness of life in the present moment because it is so fleeting. And the more we miss, one of the reasons that I'm a coach is that I know how much of your life you miss when you're in your head and you are doubting, second guessing, comparing, all of that stuff. We miss our actual life. So this is a way that you can start to work with yourself so that doesn't happen. So I'm going to talk you through what a wounded little girl self is. We're going to dive into how you can recognize where yours might be playing out in your life. And then I'm going to talk about how you can really make new decisions from your woman self, not from this little girl. And this is something that I have to be so on with myself, and it is still an evolution. Even just yesterday, I had this moment where I was like, wow, I am really in a pattern here that is my little girl trying to get attention from her parents. Still in adult days, right? And still after all of the self-development. And what I really want you to know is that there is no magic bullet, because first of all, you are not broken. So this is never about fixing you. And I think that is so important to say. It's just never about fixing you, because you're absolutely not broken. And every single time you notice that you are out of alignment and you're not acting from your woman, you're acting from your little girl, even though we can get frustrated with ourselves, that's actually the moment to be like, wow, I noticed, and I'm going to do something different now. So really being with ourselves in this process is so, so, so important, my love. So if you're listening to this, you're here for it, you're opening up your ears, you're opening up your heart, I have got you. And if you're called to go deeper on this journey, I really was, this really, like, I just knew it was where I needed to go. I currently have my incredible group program that's open for enrollment, Rise. It's an 11-week journey into becoming the woman who absolutely deeply and completely loves herself, no matter where you're currently at, and is able to make decisions from that place. And you can imagine after 11 weeks of really diving into this and taking action again and again, that comes from your women self, comes from the part of you who is really connected to power, really connected to possibility, really connected to what is available for her, and really healing the deep wounds underneath. How incredible it is. If you want to know more, there are loads of testimonials and things you can go read. Go to joannebell.org/rising2025 or drop me a message. And of course, I also work one-to-one in very deep, very intimate, very transformative containers. And those are also something that we can explore. Okay, so let's talk about wounded inner children. So when we are young, we might have like super loving parents, or we might not. We might have siblings, or we might not. We might have really good life at school, or we might not, right? There are so many different variable factors to being a child. And actually, even at the moment, my little niece is going through some things, and I'm like, oh, I just want to protect her. Like, I just want to put her in a little cotton wool ball and be like, don't get at her world, right? I want to just keep her really, really safe, and I can't. And that's perfect, because she is her own person with her own evolution and her own things to go through. So I really want you to know that when we're doing this kind of work, and I'm talking about this kind of work, it doesn't mean that you have to have had a terrible childhood. It doesn't mean that you've had no happiness in your life. This is really about really developing and cultivating a relationship with the younger part of you inside that is dying to be heard. That is what our inner child wants. It's a psychological reality. It is the deepest, most profound healing work I have ever experienced. It's the stuff that I see move mountains with clients and really help them step into new identities, step into new stages of life, because under the surface, we are all carrying something. And usually what we're carrying is a protective strategy. So I have to do X in order to stay safe. A belief system, I have to be X in order to stay safe. A belief system, I need to be X in order to stay safe. This person is not safe, so I can't be around that kind of person. Okay, so we're carrying those two things, and then we're carrying our own unique wounding. Things that happened to us, things that were said to us, things that made us believe that we were less than. We're also carrying that inside. And so all of this just makes this beautiful cocktail of who we are and how we've like shaped our lives. And it's not the essence. It's not the deepest essence of us. Our spirit, our worth, our value is not up for debate. It's just not. You can try and make it up for debate, but it's not up for debate. And I will always be here to carry that for you. So your worthiness is not up for debate. Your essence is not up for debate. Your womanhood is not up for debate. Like, you are a magical, powerful force. You are a force of life. Like, really let that land. You're alive. Do you know the difference that one person can make? It's so huge and it's so massive, and yet we underestimate ourselves all the time and we go into self-doubt, and a lot of it is connected to what I'm talking about today. So I really want you to let this land and percolate in your system and be in your body, because it affects everything. This is career, this is business, this is home life, this is definitely dating or romantic relationships or marriage. This is how we parent. It affects absolutely everything. And the thing is that we can get so frustrated at ourselves because we feel like we're in this pattern again, and we're like, I just want to fix this pattern. Like, I want to fix this pattern. And the reason that we can't, or we haven't, or it feels like we won't, is because we're not actually willing to go to the root of what is going on. And I see this a lot. I see people who get into coaching spaces, but they don't go to coaching spaces that actually support them to do deep work. They go to coaching spaces that deal with mindset, which is like the first tiny layer. It's like the topsoil. And I guess what I do is like go right down to the lava at the bottom, at the core, right? So it's so important that if we really want to make sustainable change, that we're able to access this work. And so I hope that today's really going to give you something important to consider with your journey and your life, whatever is playing out in your life right now. Really, really, I want you to lean in, and I want you to listen, and I want you to see what lands for you. So let me give an example of wounded little girl and how she might show up. So say that when you were young, you got love and acknowledgement from your very, very busy parents by working really, really, really hard at school and doing really well. So you did really well, you did what you were supposed to, and every time you got a prize or you got a good grade, that is where they acknowledged you and gave you love. Your little girl goes, oh, so when I do this, I get love, right? When I do this, I get love. Okay, so now as an adult, I am going to overachieve, overachieve, overachieve. And I'm going to get right up to the top of the corporate ladder and have this amazing job. And then when I get there, it's going to feel empty and it's going to feel hard. And I'm going to start to question everything, because this is the thing that I thought I should be doing. That is acting from your wounded little girl, right? So the reason I give you that example, it's not my actual pattern, but I've seen it so often. And then it's like we think there's something wrong with us because that thing hasn't fulfilled us. But the mistake that we're making is that we're looking outside of ourselves for something to fulfill us. We're looking outside of ourselves for something to make us feel good about who we are. And we can connect to that right here. We can connect to that right here in this space, in this energy, right here, right now. Really, really, we can. And one of the biggest ways that we can connect to our abundance and our power and our worthiness is to start to be connected to our bodies. And the reason that this one is so tricky is that so many of us have had so much judgment around our bodies. So much judgment. And so if this is one of the ways that we can access the power of our women, the women that we actually are, not the wounded little girl, is really being connected to our women body. That is difficult when for decades and years you've ignored the signals of your body. You've ignored how your body is actually functioning, right? So I really want you to sit with that and just notice. And even if, I mean, I had so many years of throwing out my food, then disordered eating, dieting. I mean, it started when I was 10 or 11 years old, not the bulimia, but the restriction, food restriction. So I was always so focused on my body. And now, because I've done so much work, I don't even want to call it work because I've opened so much to myself. I'm able to dive into these spaces and really feel like the aliveness in my body, the presence in my body, the beautiful maturity of my body. Like, I actually don't mind getting older. I love my body so much more at this age than I ever have before. Now, that's not to say it hasn't changed, but the things that I was told to put a value on, I just don't put a value on. My body is amazing. And if you want to dive more deeply into that, I'm including this more and more and more in both my one-to-one work and my group containers because it's so important. Embodiment is everything. But you may have had a relationship with your body that was completely different from mine. You may have never had body shame, but you still override the signals from your body all the time because you're so used to living from your head. So the body piece is not just about the judgment of our bodies, which I do think that we all have, and we all have conditions that we put on ourselves. And if you don't believe me, just watch how every single woman on a Zoom call will adjust their hair, including me. Like, I am not immune at all. But it's also about really like how tapped in are we to the signals of our bodies? How tapped in are we to like, does this feel actually good and confident in my nervous system or not? Right? How tapped in are we to that? How tapped in? That is something that we struggle with because it's not what we're taught in our culture, but also because we really, really can be in our wounding, which is very much in our bodies, but in a different way, and in our minds. So I just want you to be aware of this piece as well, like really like noticing how your body feels to your woman, and also you can start to notice where your little girl shows up. Because when we have deep fear, we really do feel it in our bodies, and most of the time our wounded inner children are carrying fear for us. So when we get to the mountaintop of the thing that we've done, from the energetic of my little girl self is doing this to get love and attention, or because she thinks she should, and we get there, it feels empty. It's because it's based on a wound. And so often people are reluctant to invest in coaching. They're reluctant to go specifically to this part. I see a lot of like resistance around the inner child piece because there's a perception like, oh, it's over. Like, I got through it. That was ages ago. Like, it's over. And I get that. As somebody who was in quite a lot of pain for quite a lot of time in my younger years, I get it. And it will continue to run your life until you're actually able to go and heal it, until you're actually able to go and heal that little girl and let her know she is worthy and deserving, and that she doesn't have to run this pattern anymore in order to get love or to be safe, right? Because there's also the safety element. So I'm going to give you another example of how this plays out. Okay, so the second way that wounded little girl energy can play out, and it can play out, by the way, in thousands of different ways. So I'm just giving you some concrete examples that I think are pretty relatable and ones that I've seen in myself or I've seen in clients. The other way that wounded little girl energy can really play out, and particularly with dating and relationships, is I'm going to sacrifice my needs so that you're good. So I'm going to pretend like I'm over here, I don't have any needs, and I can just get on with it. And this isn't, by the way, when I say wounded little girl, it's because I coach women. This is also really applicable. So it could be exactly the same for a wounded little boy. So it's not gender specific. I'm just putting it out here because the audience is primarily women, but it's exactly the same for men. Exactly the same. And so if we hold a belief that we need to suppress our needs in order to get love, then we end up in a relationship and we're not actually willing to say what it is that we need. Then that creates tension because we resent the other person because we feel like they should understand what we need, but we haven't told them because it doesn't feel safe for us and it doesn't feel safe in our bodies. And then that creates a whole thing, right? And when we choose men that are based on our wounding as well, we're not really oftentimes calling in healthy love. I definitely have been in the position in the past, and it probably is one of the contributing factors to why I'm currently single and calling in my person, is that I've really called in people from a wounded teenager, from a teenager that wanted to be seen, that wanted to be loved, that believed, like my teenage self, believed that she needed to look a certain way, but she also needed to like certain things in order for somebody to love her, which is such a strange belief. But it's like we pick up so much. And when you're a sensitive kid and you're like, oh, the most important thing is that I look like these women in the magazines and on the TV show. And, it's for men too, but I'm going to talk very specifically about my experience. So let me just do that. I think that'd probably be easier. Like, I remember looking at like Britney Spears and looking at these size zero models and being like, my body is not like that. It's nowhere near like that at all. And okay, so that means that I can't have the man that I want. Or that means that I need to contort myself because these are the girls that get the guys, right? And so I had some really deep wounding around this. And, when we choose from that place, we're choosing from wounded little girl energy instead of our women who really want safe, healthy, beautiful, consistent love. Sure. Another thing is, and this, I'll speak about business because it's my personal experience and the experience of so many women in my world and in my space, but it also counts for anything really. The being visible piece is really, really huge. Really huge. So if you learn as a kid, well, there's a couple of ways this could have shown up. First of all, it might have been if I am visible, or if I dress up, or if I do this, then I'm seen. If I perform, then I'm seen. You might carry that into adult life. And you might become a performer, but not from a space of this is genuinely me, but from a space of I need to entertain. I need to make people laugh. I need to make people happy in order to get love. That's always what our wounded little girl wants, is she really wants love. Or what happened with me, it is not safe to be seen because I don't fit the mold of what it is to look like and be like. So actually, I need to shrink myself as much as physically possible. And then you go out there. And for me, 6 years ago when I started my business and I was suddenly on an Instagram video or even a Zoom call and I was looking at myself, that was a whole piece that I had to work with because my wounded little girl was like, this isn't safe. This isn't safe. Don't let people look at you. Don't let people look at you. But also wanted to be seen, right? So there's that competing intention. So really pay attention to, where am I in a pattern of behavior that isn't coming from my conscious mind? And the way that you can sort of work this out is, where am I saying that I want something, but I'm doing something else? So where am I saying that I want the promotion, but I'm not actually applying for it or cultivating the relationships? Where am I saying that I want the relationship, but every time I go on a dating app, I just discard everyone on there and then crawl back under my duvet and watch Netflix? Where am I saying that I want to travel more, but I just find myself stuck and I never make a plan? Go there first. Where am I saying I want something, but I'm not taking action? Because usually the reason that we're not taking action is that we're in our wounded space. We're in this space of the child that doesn't feel safe. And yes, this is how much power your inner child has. And this is why this is one of the most profoundly healing things you can ever do in your life when you start to work with him or her. And one thing that I want you to understand, this can feel like super confusing and like another layer of the work. So I'm going to try and keep it really simple, but I want to put it in here because it's so important as a piece of the puzzle. A piece of the beautiful puzzle, the complicated, gorgeous, delicious puzzle that is you, okay? A piece of the puzzle is that there is a part of us as adults that draws in the kinds of experiences that we had as children that caused our wounding or left us wounded in some way. And I love the term wounded. You may hate it and you can call it something else, but I think it's lovely because it just evokes a kind of healing. Like if we have wounds, we can heal, right? So it's not that we have to keep these things forever, but they are part of who we are. You know, my bulimia, the way that I treated my body, the way that I pushed men away, the way that I was drink until I was blackout drunk just to feel okay about myself. That is all part of my journey. And I'm so grateful to the younger part of me that did all those things so that I could get here and be here. And like, honestly, I had this moment the other day where I was like, I feel so good in my body. Like I feel so good in my body. And it wasn't like a thing. I was just dancing in my kitchen. And I realized, like, I was like, wow, like even 4 or 5 years ago, when I was kind of starting out to teach this work, I didn't feel like that because I hadn't done the somatic piece. I hadn't done the embodiment piece. I was also still in a lot of self-judgment, to be honest. And now, like, my worth is so not connected to my physical body that I can just be in devotion to my body. And there are still times where I find myself in, oh, like I'm not eating properly. And not from a like, I need to restrict my eating perspective, but more from like, I'm just neglecting that part of me perspective. So I can't remember what my point was, but I do know what I want to say next. So sometimes as an adult, we will draw in the kinds of relationships that are going to help us heal something subconsciously. Like this all happens so subconsciously. Your wounded inner child is a subconscious thing. But when we bring her to the light and we recognize what she needs, what she yearns for, what she's devoted to, then life starts to really, really change. It really does. So, for example, if you were like a really sensitive and creative child and you had a parents that couldn't really contain that and they didn't really get it, they were very, very practical, then you might draw in the same kind of man in an attempt to heal it, in an attempt to make it okay. And really what we need to do to clear any of this is to go back to our inner child and make it okay with her and just let her know that it wasn't her fault. Because when we're children, we take things so personally. And the reason why this goes so deep is that we are, from the ages of 0 to 25, our brains are developing. So by the age of 25, we're developed. But anything before that, there is space for the programming to come in and to get lodged in there, right? So for example, okay, it's not safe to be a woman. That's like a programming that I've taken in because of something that happened when I was 14 and somebody did this or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to shut myself off in all of these different ways so that I don't have to feel like a woman, right? You with me? So complicated because we're so complex and beautiful. And one thing that I would say from having I've done inner child work now with myself for almost a decade. And it is the most beautiful privilege to get to know yourself in this way and to go so deep with yourself. And also, if you actually desire a life that is outside of what you currently have, if you desire something bigger, if you desire to like really see what you're capable of in this lifetime, then there's so much identity work that comes with this. So my identity was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not remarkable. I'm not really creative enough. So I'm just going to kind of stay over here where I'm not really seen. And that is like my lot in life, like subconsciously. Now that is not something that I that I desire for myself. Right. And I never really did, but my wounded little girl was running the show. So this is like the deepest, most profound work you can do. And also what I love about it is that it really helps you to connect the dots. Because you're like, oh, that's why I want to go and eat chocolate when I feel sad all the time, because that's what happened when I was young. And I remember feeling like, oh, this is how they love me. This is how I get love. Like that's what we are as social beings. We want to get love and we want to feel safe. And so we will do anything to make that happen. We will do anything to make that happen, even when it's not in our highest good. So, how do you start to work with this? Now you have an understanding and I've talked about it. How do you actually start to work with this and really start making shifts? Okay, so we want to go to what is presenting in your life right now. This is not about going back to like 1986 when this X thing happened and like trying to like be a detective and puzzle it all out. It's not like that. What is happening in your life right now that is a challenge, an issue, a problem for you? So, for example, are you stuck in a pattern of procrastination? Are you stuck in a pattern of numbing out and not wanting to feel? Okay, so maybe that's the pattern that's presenting. We always begin with what is actually here that we want to shift, right? What is actually here that that doesn't feel in alignment for us? Because if it's not a problem, you don't need to change it, right? You don't need to change it. So what is here is question number one. Okay, so I noticed that I have all of these ideas for a business, but instead of actually taking a step forward and setting up the Instagram and doing the steps, I just keep going on Instagram and looking at other people's stuff. Okay, and then how does that make me feel? Well, it makes me feel rubbish and it makes me feel like I can't do it. Okay, so this is the current pattern that is playing out. Okay, so then what we want to do is we want to just get really curious. And the best way you can possibly do this is with an inner child practitioner. So I can take you so far, but when we really get to go into the process together, that is where things truly, truly shift, because it's not even just about having someone to take you through the steps. It's having a safe adult hold you while you go through the processes, especially when you're developing a relationship with your inner child. Once you've done this for a while and you really have an understanding of it and you really can hold yourself safely, it's different. But in the beginning, you really want to have someone that can hold you very, very safely in the process, because that's what your inner child was really missing. For some reason, they didn't get that at that particular moment in time. Okay? They didn't get that at that particular moment in time. Again, this is not about blaming your parents. It's not about blaming anyone. It's just about recognizing, okay, this is something that I learned to believe. So say that we take the numbing, the procrastination pattern. Okay. So what is underneath that? What am I actually afraid of? Okay. I'm afraid of being seen. Okay. Does that feel true? Yeah. It feels like it has charge when I say it. That's why we know something is true. Okay. Now, do I feel afraid of being seen? Or is it my little girl inside that's afraid of being seen? You're going to know pretty straight. You're going to know pretty quickly. It's my little girl inside. She doesn't think it's okay. Okay. Why doesn't she think it's okay? And we're just very gently excavating what it is she's learned to believe. So she's going to be holding on to some kind of belief, probably a belief that if she is seen, then somebody might reject her or they might abandon her, right? So something like that. Okay. Okay. So then it's our job as the adult to be like, hey, love, I know you think that's true. I really know you think that's true. And that feels very real. And I absolutely hear it. We never, ever, ever want to dismiss our inner child. And this is a part where you're really going to have to work with your adult self. And again, why it can be so supportive to have someone to hold you with it. Because there could be a part of you, especially if you had caregivers who are not patient with you, that thinks of this as an inconvenience in the way that actual children can be inconvenient sometimes. You're like, you're having this meltdown and we need to get out of the house like in 5 minutes, you know? So it's that we really need to sit with this part of ourselves and listen to what they have to say and really understand why they believe what they believe. And then what we can do is kind of align them to the truth. So again, we're not dismissing them, but we're saying, hey, I know that you learned to believe that it's not safe and it totally makes sense. And I absolutely hear you. And I am here as an adult to let you know that you don't need to worry about this anymore. That actually, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And if I were taking you deeper into our process, then we would really let this belief go and we would really start to shift it and move it. So I hope that is supportive. What we're trying to do is to help the inner child to feel like your wounded little girl, to feel like she's really heard. We're not pushing away her concern, because when we push it away, it gets really loud, and this is what results in the behaviors. We're not pushing it away, but we are here to say, love, I know you learned that, and it's probably confusing for you because it feels very real, but it's not actually true. And what we're really doing is working with our inner child to really integrate her so that you can act from your woman and not from this wounded little girl energy, this needy energy, this energy of like, I have to prove myself or I need to do this or whatever it is. So when you're making a decision, because specifically I wanted to talk about this because I think it's so, so, so important. When you're making a decision, this is what I want you to go to and to think about. You could even write this down as a checklist. Okay. Question number 1. Am I making this decision because I think it is going to get me love? Am I making this decision because I think it's going to get me love, right? And sometimes we can be in patterns where the decisions that we're really making are kind of subconscious and we're just kind of keeping on doing it. So for example, talking negatively about something is a decision, but we don't call it that. So am I doing this because a part of me thinks I'm going to get love if I do it? So for example, if you want to apply for a promotion in your job, really checking in with yourself. Like, am I doing this because my woman wants this promotion? Or am I doing it because my little girl thinks that status means that she gets love, achievement means that she gets love? I'm really like try and connect the dots, right? Is that something that is currently happening, right? The second question to ask to see if you can get yourself really clear on this is, am I doing this so that I stay safe? So first one is, am I doing this because so that I can get love? Second question, am I doing this so that I can stay safe? Right? So not going on the date. Okay, checking in with myself. Am I really doing this because I don't want to go on the date? Or am I doing this so that I can stay safe because it feels safer to my little girl inside if I actually don't put myself out there? Really get honest with yourself. Really, really get honest with yourself. Okay. And then this question is a really, really tender question, love, but it's a very important one to ask. Am I doing this because I think it's all I deserve? Am I doing this because I think it's all I deserve? And I was coaching somebody recently who really is this part of her. Parts is such a beautiful process to go through. There's part of her that really desired this big kind of professional leap and thing that she's been training for and, all of this stuff. But there was a part of her that didn't think she deserved that. And that was her wounded inner child. Her wounded inner child had learned that she was different from other girls because they had better clothes than she had. And it can be as simple as something like that. That can be something that we hold about ourselves and that influences present day behavior profoundly. So, am I doing this because I think it's all I deserve? And then when you have that, and when you know that you're acting from wounded little girl, the next question to really ask yourself is, what am I believing? Like, what is the little girl inside me believing? And this is where developing that relationship with yourself and really deepening into the relationship with yourself is going to change your life, because you're going to be able to start connecting with her in a much deeper and quicker way. And at the beginning, it might be actually quite hard, but trust your intuition and trust what comes through. Okay, so what is she believing? She's believing she's not good enough. Okay. She's believing she's not good enough. She's going to get rejected. It's going to hurt. Okay. So now I know that's what she's holding. Then I can start to work with this energy. Okay. So I know that my little girl feels that. I know exactly why. I'm going to tell her, like, I'm here. I'm listening to that. I absolutely understand why you feel that way. Again, not dismissing. I'll say it again until I'm blue in the face. Not dismissing her is the most important piece. And then, okay, I know that you're feeling like this. So then you really want to tune into what she needs to hear. So for example, she needs to hear that we're going to be okay. She needs to hear this isn't dad. She needs to hear that somebody else's opinion of us actually doesn't matter, because I really just care about what she thinks and how she feels, right? And so again, this takes work, it takes development, but really being with this little girl part of you and asking her, like, what does she need to hear? And she will need reassurance, and she'll need to know that you're there, and she needs to know she doesn't have to take all of this on. Right. And then if we didn't deeper work, we would then go into the how to release the beliefs. But this, even just developing this relationship with yourself, will really help you in terms of how to make decisions, because you'll start to notice, oh, okay, I actually don't want to go and have this cinema night. For me, I want to go for my inner teenager because she's really, really comforted by it. So then I can make the decision, right? Does my women self want to be in control, or do I want to listen to my inner teenager? And either one, there's no judgment either way. But just getting clear on where you're coming from is really, really, really important. And the piece I really want you to let drop into your system is, if you want to feel different, if you want to feel differently about yourself and about your life, and if you maybe want to go out and do things that you've never done and have things you've never had, then you need to develop this relationship with yourself. Because having absolute safety and sovereignty with yourself means that you can make any decision and you're going to be good with you. The trouble that we get in is when we think about making a decision and we're like, oh, if I do that, then I'll fail. And if I fail, then I will be rejected, or I won't get love, right? If it comes from that energetic, there's a whole heap of stuff underneath that that's going to clutter up your energy and make it really unclear. So when we can start to work with this, you can start to really come fully online as your a woman. You can start to be in your body. You can start to reassure and work with those parts of yourself that are so scared and just really, really need love. And then you can make decisions from your life from the place of, this is actually what I want and desire, instead of, this is what I'm doing because I don't feel good enough inside. I don't feel like I'm worthy. And no matter what I do, no matter which way I cut it, it isn't changing. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go and try this thing because this seems distracting enough for me to not think about this for 5 minutes. And that's the reality of this. So I would absolutely love to know, I know some people who will be listening to this have already done inner child work with me, and there might be new things that are dropping in. If you never have, this might be totally new. If you have questions, then please get in touch. Let me know what lands. Let me know where you can feel that you are operating currently from wounded little girl energy. And, really think of her as someone to be tended to, not someone to reject. Like, not like, oh, I'm operating from my wounded little girl energy. It's not that. This is very much like oh my gosh, my little girl inside is so feeling this. And she needs love and she needs support. And how can I give that to her? That is where I want you to go. Thank you so much for being here and being you. If you're ready to dive deeper on your self-development journey, visit joannebell.org, where you can sign up to get even more magic, access incredible bonuses, and find out more about working with me.